Hello everyone, welcome to the Narcissism Dakota, a YouTube channel that's designed to take a comprehensive look at the various facets of narcissism from different psychoanalytic perspectives. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Mazzella. In today's video, we're going to continue our discussion on the paranoid narcissist. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2 of what actually turned into be a series of videos now on this topic, now's a good time to go back and check those 2 videos out. At the beginning of episode 2, I mentioned that when we start breaking narcissism into its components, things get a little complicated. And I mentioned that I would try to cover the goals of the video in that video, but we didn't get there. Unfortunately, we went a little bit long, so we needed to push this to a 3rd video. But I'm hoping that we have a really good foundation now of what leads an individual to become the paranoid type of narcissism rather than the covert or the grandiose narcissistic individual. In order to do that, we needed to look at a little bit of theory, as usual. I believe that theory helps guide interventions and technique, or to say that differently, that theory, if you can understand where this comes from, it will help you relate to these individuals in your life in a more empathic and understanding way. Can the paranoid narcissistic individual be treated? Or stated differently, how do I relate to this type of person in my life? And I began to encourage all of you to think about the answer to that question depends on the goals. What are we trying to accomplish with these individuals? And I mentioned from my own biased perspective, which is a psychoanalytic perspective, setting boundaries, encouraging empathy or perspective taking, or fostering empathy, or teaching coping strategies. These are really, and again, in my opinion, this is not going to help. I mean, it may help a little bit, but if we really want to think about how we could foster some meaningful change with these individuals, we need to go back to the theory. And I think we can and that's why I always spend a little bit of time on theory, because we can let theory be our guide, because the cause of the problem is the cure. So in other words, if we have a good theory on what causes this, and by the way, we'll look at different theories as we go along. If you subscribe to this channel and you follow me, we'll look at many different psychoanalytic theories. But in this particular theory, we touched upon how there's a deep sense of shame and humiliation due to a really sadistic upbringing. So if we let theory be our guide and we think about the cause, we start thinking inevitably about a deep sense of shame and humiliation that needs to be projected. Remember that, the purified pleasure ego? Purify yourself. Project, get rid of everything that's bad in you. Remember, it gets split off and projected and put into other people in your life. Okay? So the first thing is, how do we help this individual become aware of these really painful feelings? And this is no easy task, because their whole system is designed to get rid of these feelings. So they're not always, and I say always because there are different levels of this, but they're not always consciously aware that they have these feelings. This is what we call egosyntonic. It's just egosyntonic that everybody in the environment engages in shameful behavior, but not them. So what do we need to do? We need to turn something that's egosyntonic into something that's ego-dystonic. So the first task is to help them begin to think about their inner world. They must find ways, in my opinion, this would be the goal. They must find ways to identify, to label, and then to be able to work with, experience these feelings inside of them. Let's break this down, okay? This should sound familiar. The first thing we want to do is appreciate the subjectively useful component. Now, what does that mean? This must sound crazy to many of you. I was teaching a class last night, and a student was presenting a case. And she said to me, how do I deal with something like this? And my first response was, you need to get closer to it. You need to understand it from the patient's perspective, okay? So all the sort of the rules of engagement apply here in terms of we start with the manifest content, we always remain curious, and we want to understand things from their perspective. As paranoid as they are, that's the stuff that we want to get closer to. As suspicious as they are, as contemptuous as they are, those are all the things that we want to get closer to and understand. So with the case that I gave this fictitious case of this fellow John, who was having a hard time holding down a job because he was always very suspicious and vigilant of his colleagues' behaviors. So in terms of engaging curiosity, I may say something to this fellow like, by the way, did you notice that you tend to be quite hard on your colleagues, or you tend to be quite critical of your colleagues? I wonder what that's all about. And this led him and us to begin to think about and talk about how he sits like a judge. In other words, he's above, this is the narcissistic piece, of course, he's above all of his colleagues, sort of looking down at them and judging them. One day, I wondered if he feels that these people should be ashamed of their behavior. Now, this is a technique, by the way, because if we go back to the theory, if you believe the theory that what's in oneself gets projected out and put into others, if we could work on the shame in these other people, and we can appreciate that it needs to be there and stay there for good reason. In other words, people project because they can't tolerate a painful feeling. So there's no point in us trying to force it back into him. There's no point in me talking to him about how perhaps you feel shameful and you need to put it on your colleagues. That would be silly, in my opinion. Maybe at some point later on we could do this if he's closer to his own feelings, which I'll talk about in a moment. But initially, we have to appreciate. Remember I said appreciate the subjectively useful component of a maladaptive symptom. We have to appreciate that he puts it into his colleagues for good reason. And the reason is, one, he can't tolerate it. And two, this was pushed into him his entire childhood life, right? Remember, these are the children who grew up with parents who shamed them. So one day when I started to wonder about whether his colleagues should feel ashamed of their behavior, this led to further work in that area. And he began to think about how he wants special treatment. But with that, he said that he feels embarrassed saying that. In other words, he felt embarrassed saying that he wants this special treatment. Now you see we're a little bit closer, because the underlying theory says that these individuals carry around a great deal of humiliation and shame, embarrassment. And he is beginning to reflect now on how he feels embarrassed. So we want to pull that forward. Same rule of engagement. Be curious. You want to hear more about this. When we were able to talk about his feelings, he eventually came to discuss, he said, every day I feel like I'm not good enough. And this was a significant shift. Now, you may be asking, how is that a significant shift that he could say that every day he walks around feeling like he's not good enough? Why would we ever want to get a person or a patient to the point where they're feeling so down on themselves? The answer to that is, now he himself is recognizing a feeling that was not there before. And after that, from this point forward, John didn't lose any more jobs. He was able to hold a job. Why? Because he was able to hold a feeling. See, in other words, he held a job because he held a feeling. And the feeling that he held, instead of projected, was one of shame and humiliation. Now, he wouldn't have been able to hold that feeling if a few things didn't happen in the interim. What happened is, when I said we did some work in this area, is for a period of time, I needed to hold that feeling. So even if there were things that he complained about with me, for instance, I didn't fight him. I didn't deny it. I held it. And when you hold it and you could think about it, a few things happen. One is, I'm demonstrating to him that a painful feeling that he's complaining about something with me, right? In other words, like I should be shameful of my conduct, that a painful feeling can be tolerated. And that sends a very important message, that if I could tolerate it, maybe he could tolerate it as well. But the other thing that happens is in talking about it and looking at it from different angles, we begin to do what we call detoxify these painful feelings. And once because they're very toxic, that's why he needs to get rid of them and project them. In other words, they're very dangerous. Once we can detoxify them, think about them, talk about them, look at them from various different perspectives, then he could take that back in a way that is detoxified. And it's like taking something different, and it's not as dangerous. And when it's not as dangerous, this then leads to the potential or the possibility that he could then begin to hold those feelings, which is where I started. So what happens here? He holds feelings, there's less projecting, and then there's less accusations, and he doesn't get himself in trouble anymore at work. So this is a way that we help these people. And again, if you are listening to the social media content, I hope now you yourself, between these videos and the videos that I did on the covert craving narcissist, I hope you are beginning to question what you typically hear out there, which is that these individuals cannot be treated, because that's not my experience. And I'm not saying that this is not challenging, and it's not without sort of progressions and regressions. You know, if we had more time, I really want to keep this video tight. If we had more time, I would tell you about, it wasn't all up for John. Then there would appear, even though he was holding a job, eventually he started dating, and the paranoid tendencies returned. That he started to become suspicious that his girlfriend was cheating on him. You see, so it's not an upward trajectory, it's sort of up and down. As long as there's sort of a forward progression with an increase in capacity to tolerate and hold through the act of containing it, detoxifying it, labeling it, and then owning it, that then there's less projection. And with less projection comes a very different life, a very different experience of people around you. Anyway, listen, I know there's much more to say as usual. If you have any questions, by the way, if I confuse you with anything that I said thus far, or there's anything that you want to hear more about, I could do a deeper dive on any of this content. Please feel free to reach out, shoot me an email. All my links, my contacts are below. Feel free to get in touch with me. I would be delighted to hear from you. Until next time, we have to leave it there for now, but I shall see you again soon.